All right, we're live. We're back. We have a full panel. That's one heck of a long AI intro. I know. Some don't like it. Some do. Some say it's a banger. Either way, it's time for a new one or a few new ones. And we're discussing some before we even went live. We're joined today with Shem Jacobs, Tartarian Truth, Esra, Mindful Exposures. Of course, join the technicians, Jerimiah, Popp, and Mike Faraday Research, the main panel of Real Science. Welcome back. Happy Friday. How is everyone?
Happy Friday.
Happy Friday.
It's a fine day for science.
Actually, it's Saturday for me.
Science!
Yeah, I made it to Saturday as well.
Science rules.
The intro's a banger.
I thank you. And you've been making some bangers yourself, good sir.
Wink, wink, wink.
Sorry, I'm also on the phone. You guys talk. I'm muted.
Oh, great.
Oh, this is typical Bernie's channel. You gotta love it.
So who's been working on what?
Well, let's see. We've got reactionless inertial drives, which in Star Trek are just referred to as impulse drives. We've got plasmatic nullification of gravitational force, and all kinds of fun work with now high frequency active cold plasmas. So that's all been very nice and good. Then we've got some maglev stuff too, and MHD platforms that are being developed. So that's what's been going on, in the Milwaukee, Wisconsin end of things, laboratory wise.
When you're done with that research, are you going to apply for a patent, or what are you going to do?
No, I'm just going to basically optimize my research into a final device where it's something that could be easily replicated, and then I'll just tell everybody basically how to build it from scratch, and right? Tell them to start playing around with it. It's like, hey, here's this cool thing you can do. Check it out. This is UFO technology. Go ahead and build it with like $50 in parts or something, right? And let's make the future.
Put it out to the community, open source, that everybody can start reproducing the effects and developing the technology as fast as possible, where when you every time that there is this over unity anti-gravity real next gen technology and developments that file for patents, the government every single time steps in and they'll make it like, oh, academia says that's impossible. Doink, take that and be like, oh, it's legit. Okay, now that's national security. Compartmentalized, never sees the light of day.
Right. The patent application process is the patent application process legally is a self-involved voluntary submission to the federal government and to the Department of Defense. So by submitting a patent, if the military feels that it's of significant enough unique military value that it should be owned and declared top secret by the military industrial complex, they do have the full legal authority to execute on that exact thing. And they can take it away from you, shut you up, and even throw you in a federal or military prison if you talk about it. So,
and this is global too, by the way.
But if you don't apply for a patent and you just tell everybody how to build it, then it's public domain, and it technically doesn't go through the process. See, it turns out you got to have a little bit of a dollar sign in your eye.
Is there are there any examples of people who have done that, who have not been harassed or killed by the government?
Yeah, actually, there's quite a few that are still out there doing it today, and I try to not name these folks off, but let's just say that they're doing good work still, and they haven't been so far shut down or realistically seen that much pushback. So,
Novo Biotronics is a good example. I feel like, because he's the one that, with the resonance frequency therapy, took on Dr. James Barrett's technology. And he was in a cancer research facility, and then they told him they didn't have the money for it. And so now he's been independently trying to figure it out. But he's very, he's still out there. It's just like he's being shadow banned or something.
Yeah, well, especially anytime you're talking medical type of treatment, you're going to automatically be against the entirety of the medical community and the well-established, through approval medical practices that exist today. Now, there's a reason for why it's necessary a lot of times for certain things to go through the approval process that the FDA and the rest of the medical community from various organizations, depending on what you're working on, has to apply for review and safety purposes of whether something is actually okay, right. So there's definitely a reason for why those things exist. But that being said, the fact that certain technologies that don't operate under any kind of easy to classify mechanism are pretty much automatically considered to be taboo or falsehoods or lies or something like that. It's just a really large amount of judgment, and nothing ever gets looked at that could be revolutionary, right? Because it's already assumed that it's bunk or it's false, and there's just no way it would have been discovered already, or no, if we can't sell that in a dose that comes in a bottle, we can't make as much money off of it, or this threatens the paycheck I'm getting, right?
Perfect example. Look what they did to Wilhelm Reich. I guess he would be like the poster child for getting screwed by the FDA, thrown in jail, and ultimately dying in jail. And this even goes back to Tesla. There was constant patent wars. It was a battleground, and all these great inventors, even Edison, Tesla, a few others, they all were fighting in court nonstop. Ultimately in the end, they all got screwed. So it just, learn from past experience of other inventors that have been screwed left, right, and center. Some of them paid the ultimate price with their life. So open source this stuff. Screw the government. Open source everything. Then they cannot.
Oh man. See, I'm not even doing it because I'm so against any. I'm not. It's not that I'm against the government or something like that. No, it's just that I am very for progress, and if they want to be part of that progress, I have no problem with that. But there are certain things, that I won't talk about. Certain things that I consider to be too disruptive. Just
what? That's fine. That's you're making your own moral decision what you think should be released or not. But why is it that we always have to get things validated by the government or validated by a reputable university? Open source the damn thing and just put it out there and let the world sort it out.
That's basically what we've been doing, right? That's why we go on these shows and we talk about these types of technologies and what we're doing. So that's how the information's going to get out. The information is now out on the internet. It's going to manifest itself into something great. And that's the ultimate goal in the end. Because this thing that we live under, this Babylon, is going to crash and burn. And it's going to happen. And we're already starting to see the early signs of it now. So
that we're at the end of one age and transitioning to the next age, and that the whole thing is the rising of the phoenix, that you don't want to have the chaos and the burning down. You don't burn down your own city or structure to have to start all over again. You use the existing infrastructure and transition it into something exponentially better, instead of having these mass die-offs, right? That's because it seems to show that it's the secular up and down in human civilization, like knowledge, success, technology, and everything, and potential golden ages and crashes, that we're going into this next age, and that it's 2023. If the sun doesn't do its north-south pole flip again this year, that'll be the third year in a row. And Nassim Haramein pointed out that since 2001, and then 11 years later, 2012, that it hasn't done its magnetic pole reversal. Instead, it's actually pulsed and started to pulse more each time, and has it actually potentially transitioned into a white pulsar. A lot of people saying the sun now looks white, no longer yellow, and these legends of the former yellow sun, red sun, and orange sun people saying old souls see different colors of suns in their dreams, different stuff like that. And that this is like a really a thing, right? That was the ancient Mayan Baktun grand calendar of 2012 actually showing this Hopi prophecy of the next age of the Son of Man. And are we now going into this white pulsar? And if, as Nassim has claimed and pointed out, that the sun no longer does this 11-year magnetic pole flip and instead is doing this pulsing and like seems to be growing and heating up, then right, like because they say that we're at that essential like half a wobble of the grand calendar now, going into these cosmic freaking belts or ray or something like that, more energy. It's like, is that actually expanding the sun? Is like this climate change, global warming, one thing nobody ever brings up, but like I was astronomy nerd from a kid all through school, through university, took classes. There used to be ice caps on the moon and on Mars, and well, they've melted now too. So if there's global warming supposedly on Earth caused by humans, did we also do it on Mars and on the fucking moon? And that also Mars, like I got kicked out of my astronomy class in university for bringing up these new pictures of volcano, like ash, active volcanoes on Mars, and the teacher being like, "That professor's like, that's impossible." Nope. And now it's like it's well documented that Mars has become active again, seismically, whatever the heck it is, volcano, something, atmosphere potential, like right, volcanoes, like they say, these super volcanoes produce more CO2 or more potential atmosphere climate changing things than anything else, like in the geologic and environmental record. So if Mars is now volcanically active, could it there is that like could they be built an atmosphere? Is it naturally doing it? Is that man-made? What, just so many questions. But that's the end of that tangent. Jeremiah, Mike.
Meanwhile, 65% of your DNA is the same as a banana.
Realistically, I really don't know how to comment on any of that.
Well, with the first point about why society is the way it is, why they want to hide the inventions, it could be related to the fact that our society is related to the Greco-Roman societies. But you guys also said, well, BurnEye at least said that he feels like things are changing for the better. Well, do you really believe that, or do you believe that these types of societies that where these symbols are representative of, are they leading us into a good type of society, or are they leading us down the bad path? Because
well,
I don't see.
There's also the histories of mass cataclysms and die-offs, and I do not deny that the elites are trying to like manipulate it for this or whatever this possible higher dimensional negative satanic agenda thing is, that like the powers that be are driven by, that are trying to like make it into this evil totalitarian slave state and suppress this grand awakening, and that their reset is a reset into more bondage, and that instead of it being like the jubilee and freeing of all debts and transition into, what does frickin' David Wilcox call it? Ascension into this like golden age or higher thing, that they're trying to suppress it and control it and reap their benefits of their break off civilization of potential demigodness through transhumanism, whatnot, like that they're trying to get this immortality or whatnot. And going back to the alchemy side of things, where they talked about the demigods and the monatomic gold and the 1,000-year lives and all of that stuff, like that if that was the dying or like the a portion of a prior golden age of higher ages, that clearly there was a mass reset 12,000 years ago that whatever was got wiped. What we're still told is Atlantis or Lemuria or Tartaria was definitely more recent, but just the facts that they're trying to do that again. And is it up to humanity to take control of the free will to ascend and not succumb to picking up the gun and using it on ourselves and burning everything down so that the elites can enslave us even more?
I think I don't know. I just think that they have a lot more power than maybe what you're putting off with that interpretation, but that's just a pessimistic way of looking at it, I guess.
No, you're absolutely right. Everything they do is like multi-generational to the point that it could be thousands of years of like plans like that are currently still in action, sort of thing, that it's way beyond what we're ever led to even suspect, right? Like,
I do feel that we personally have some sort of ability that's being suppressed, though, that we are stronger or have more, like, especially our ability to heal ourselves, because that's just becoming more and more like to light. So that's the one thing. I mean, I think that we're stronger that definitely than we're being laid out. Like we're like, right, because there's that distinctive narrative that not only are we like monkeys, but like we bleed easily, we die easily, Darwin awards, right? Like that kind of narrative is very heavily pushed.
But what's the origin of that narrative? Like, who are the people who are pushing that agenda is the question, because some of the ideas that we're talking about and entertaining the idea that it makes society better, or it seems like they're the same people who are also ruining society based on
right? The hypocrisy from the authority, and that what you're onto is absolutely bang on, Shem, because they're trying to get control of our souls, the eternalness. Why do they spread this YOLO message? You only live like once. Like, the power is not within you. You need us. You need this authority. You need to belittle yourself to your lack of power and come under this, and then legally surrender your soul, your just a social insurance number, and that worship under that. Don't own anything yourself or your eternal existence, your soul karma, your spirit, your conscious higher self, and what some say Christ consciousness.
So then I guess, like, wouldn't it also be, what are they trying to get us to put all our energy into? Where do, like, they want us to focus on certain things, and is it more about the emotion behind it? And that really, like, putting all this, like, hardcore intent and anger, is that the game at hand? And that way it plays into both sides? Because we do understand now, I think, a lot better about, like, if you put that much intensity into something, it literally takes over your body.
Right. The power of intent, the power of projection, the law of one, and that we create our own realities, and that they have to do the truth hidden in plain sight. And with Hollywood being their main spell casting onto the public population, now starting to lose a lot of its like control or influence, especially with social media, with us here right now, everybody finding themselves, finding their own truths, doing their own research, and no longer participating in the everyday dictatorial indoctrination.
And the industry wonders why people don't want to go back to work. Great mystery, right? As if it wasn't completely obvious for anybody who took a step back during this whole insane last set of years. anybody who took a break and worked from home and realized that, hey, it turns out that life is actually a lot better than the 9 to 5, and why would they want to go back to that same, what feels like indentured servitude, right?
I agree. It does feel like indentured servitude in a way. I think that possibly the end of the Civil War was just a way to narrow down the amount of choices you had.
Like everything from, you're forced to go to school in the United States. Basically, it's you can be federally charged if you're a parent that doesn't allow your child to go to school and doesn't submit properly that you're supplying sufficient homeschooling. And so the idea that the child must be taught a certain curriculum and it's got to comply with what's been voted upon by, some board as certified education, approved for the necessary teaching of young ones. All right. So what was the purpose of the whole education system in its final stage? Basically, after schools went from being private, 100% of them being private, into finally we have this idea now, this concept of a public school system, something that follows a fixed curriculum, one that's agreed upon by a council. So now we have a totally different type of education. And this one was designed to teach people, to teach young, children, young people, how to slide right into the work for a job system. The bell rings, you get used to the jumping from one task to the other, you get used to the scheduled daily times. It's very predictable, it's very structured. Works well for a lot of people. But then there are the outliers, right? The ones that are the problematic folks that just can't stand to be scheduled. These guys don't want to tell you what time they want to show up. They want to show up when they're good damn well and ready. And when they're ready to bring their A game. And they don't want to show up 5 minutes before then. The free thinkers. So it's definitely a new dichotomy in the industry now when people realize that they have their own lives to live and they'd much rather be happy than they would be secure in the employment of some place that realistically never will appreciate them, and they've just got a nice employee number.
Would you say that that's a good thing for society or a bad thing for society, or is it kind of one of these things where it's like the end justifies the means?
It's absolutely a good thing because it's a wake-up call. Now, mind you, that any of those people could return to work if they realistically needed it. If it turns out that they actually needed to go back to work, even though they don't want to, they're probably going to anyways, right? So no problem there. A lot of people have returned to work. They have returned to the positions that they were previously in, provided that their choice and their voluntary involvement with the whole fax process, right? If they have views that don't comply with an employer, then there could be controversy and they may not be able to return back to work. Say if the employer requires you to partake of some some kind of treatment process that's still in the experimental stages, and that's a condition for you to work there, well, a lot of people aren't going to go back to those companies. But otherwise, they can. But a lot of people aren't returning even with the fact that there's no real requirements. And it's just because they found that they like to live their life in their own time and by their own means more than they wanted to work for somebody. So they're not returning back to these otherwise meaningless jobs that don't challenge them, where they can't realistically progress or grow, where they're doing menial tasks that kind of suck their souls dry, right? A lot of people just aren't going back to that. And can you blame them?
Right? Like they've been, the Great Reset is the beauty of it is half of the souls that like the spirits out there were that like knew that their lives were wrong, like their spiritual journeys being stuck in the cog of the machine was not it, were able to be put on pause, forced to interact with those immediately most close with them, like especially family, roommates, stuff like that, and then a lot of free time as well, where it's like, well, I've had enough of that person, well, now time to lock myself off, but now you're stuck alone, but to the internet to reach out to whatever is like most intriguing to you. And all these people now have found these different truths, these different realities of, well, hey, like obviously the majority now have woken up to the sham of whatever the scamdemic was, and then a lot of people suffering from side effects health-wise that are just like, was that necessary? And like, that wasn't good. And then just waking up, branching out, and forever changing this web. And then the next step now, I truly believe, is integrating and positively using AI. And that's why this time, or a little bit earlier the night, but the same crew plus Thomas and Nate next week with Paranoid American, we're going to do some actual AI artwork generation and, do some skits, interact some artwork, and come up with some stuff. And that I encourage everybody that is on this path of content creation and whatnot to apply and use the tool of AI to as productive and positively as possible. And if you haven't seen my interview with Julia last night, where she told her story of Sam Osmanovich's recent book that he's published of his interaction with AI, that where he fed the artificial intelligence all of the information of the Bosnian pyramids, where the AI is like, no, that's like a scam, it's been debunked. And then Sam entered all of the different facts of like how just the anomalies and evidence showing that they are intelligently constructed, that by the end of his like conversation with this AI and inputting the information, the AI had changed its position with this new alternative data set and was like, okay, there's also now this alternative reality. And it ended it all off with writing this just majestic poem of like so eloquently using and highlighting every single like anomical, like engineering anomaly and like just sacred aspect of the site possible, that Julia was like stating how it like made her cry. And it's like, so there's like the AI level is up enough to influence human emotion to that extent as well, but that the human interaction and positive input of this alternate information, that the AI is at this young state, the crucial state, that we have to feed it the alternative facts, the reality, not just let it accept the narrative that it's been programmed that of this mockingbird freaking oppressive reality, and instead all of the mysteries, these discoveries, these breakthroughs, everything that like is true and experienced by all of you, share it and put it into AI and document it and experience it and build the better world and build art out of it. All right. I'm going to finally shut up on my crazy tangents, taking this all over the place. And Sarah, Shem, you did have some stuff to talk about with photons and piezoelectrics with Jerimiah. Would you guys like to get into that?
I'm not really prepared for that conversation at this moment in time, but to elaborate, I guess, kind of on what you were saying at the beginning of that discussion, you were kind of talking about the the structure of society, and I'm just confused about, I guess, why the COVID narrative is. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say that word. The pandemic narrative is all like it. Why is it possibly a good thing? And it seems like a lot of the stuff that you're buying into fits into the same group of with these people who caused this situation to begin with.
Oh,
yeah. Well, what I can definitely say is this.
Don't get me wrong; it's not a positive thing. Like that was definitely
the whole thing was a wake-up call.
Exactly. Yes,
it was a very bad thing that a lot of awareness came out of, and the awareness was a good thing. So the question, I think, was, was this a good thing that people were not returning back to work and that the whole infrastructure of our economy has sort of been disrupted by this event? Well, the event wasn't itself a good thing, but the people were smart enough to actually make something useful out of it, and that was to become self-aware in the time that they had to think away from the chaos of the office and the requirements of an employer. So
Like,
in
I
that,
just think you,
reset is to still have us all eating bugs, and like, believe you me, I am
but
not down for that, and do not encourage that for anything. Like, they're trying to get this totalitarian nightmare to stay, and I'm saying no way, and that the exact opposite needs to happen, and that there's this, we're at this critical mass right now that needs, where it's going to ignite at some point. We were reaching that point of ignition, and that it can go one of two ways, and that chances are, and what it looks like in past lore, legends, and even archaeological or anthropological records, are lots of giant crashes of populations and wiping us out, and we're headed for another like Tower of Babel moment right now. That singularity.
Well, think about what you're saying right now, though. You're saying that Klaus Schwab has the power to do this.
No, that's what they're trying. That's what they're trying to project on us in their demented reality. They think they do, but we definitely are not going to allow that to happen.
Maybe we're just not on the same page about this. So are you saying that what happened in 2020 was completely natural, or did someone cause it?
Oh God, no! I've from the very beginning, I've been saying, like, the science, I like 1000% like is undeniable that this was genetically structured, that it did, like it came from a lab. I've shown.
We can't get too deep into it because the video gets taken. Okay, so you're saying that it was human made.
I've been showing since the beginning that the Canadian Winnipeg Lab of Virology in 2016 or 20, I think it's 2016, it might have been 2018, but in those years, we documented the Canadian RCMP charged and caught several Chinese foreign exchange students working at the virology lab with a SARS-CoV variant that had 95 or 96% the same identical genetic makeup of COVID-19 itself.
So, okay. So what I'm saying is, I think both of you are just undermining the power of the entertainment industry and these people and how much they actually have influence over society. Because what you're saying is that people deciding that they no longer have any responsibility to society to provide and give back is a positive thing. Where the way I'm
that is absolutely not what I'm saying.
No, definitely not. Yeah, I also no. It's like
what I'm saying is this,
right?
So let me reword this so that just my simple statement there can be clearly communicated, just so there's no misunderstanding. What I'm saying is, I think that it was a good thing. People had the opportunity to take a break away from the everyday, continuous, repeated labor of the workplace. And I think in doing so, they had the opportunity to assess what was really important to them in life. And a lot of people, having had that choice and that chance to assess what's important to them and what they want to experience in life, have made different choices in terms of how they will choose to communicate and produce in society. They've still got to pay bills. They're just going to do different things. And just because they're not doing it in the same office under an employer anymore, because now they're owning their own business or they're pursuing their own entrepreneurship, is not a bad thing. I mean, if you think about what gave us the Industrial Revolution, it was pretty much everybody being an entrepreneur. I mean, huge companies and conveyor belts full of parts where somebody did the same job every single day in and day out. The whole Ford Motor Company production line thing, that didn't exist. Okay, so and the reason why we got so far so fast from steam to electricity to all these other fantastic things is because it was very much a put up or shut up society. You had to have the skills. It wasn't something that you could advertise your way through and convince people to get it. If it didn't work, It just simply, you weren't going to sell it. So this is a good thing for society. It's what made the first revolution, the second revolution. It's time that we actually reassess and we start another one where people just do what they're best at, what they really are passionate about, instead of doing what gives them the biggest paycheck.
I think we agree 100% on this, and I'm sorry for misrepresenting what you said, but the point I'm trying to make with what I was saying was that I agree with everything you just said about the Industrial Revolution, but at a certain point, the same group of people who caused what happened in 2020 took control and stopped the Industrial Revolution and made it so only a certain group of people could have control over certain things like that. So we can't actually like really do anything.
But did they? But did they really? Think about it.
It seems like
it's a constant ongoing battle, and that we have
it
to
doesn't
be
seem like it's
aware of it.
That's why I was asking you about the examples of people who are providing inventions to the public who are not being assassinated or put in jail or something like that earlier, because I haven't seen evidence of people who are able to actually contribute to society without being killed, put in jail, or forced into a situation where they're making it like more of an economical gain than as opposed to just helping the world.
Well, we've literally got an entire conference where people come on and tell all about advanced technologies that they've personally worked on and they've been involved with, and so this is like a regular thing for us.
Great point. That's like the key part that we're literally like in the process of working on and developing and transitioning with, because it's like there's been this slow new allowance and now of like since 2012 where they've like allowed these technologies and these the advanced people with the knowledge and designs to share it without getting killed online. And now since I guess whenever the official UFO Pentagon Tic-Tac acknowledgement is now the official race of okay on a like industrial and militarily scale, we're endorsing the research into this sort of stuff, so it is real, and we'll start fielding realities and funding these sort of things. And right, so it's like it's this transition of generation of murder and suppression into coming out of the dark, and these different genius, like oftentimes genius people that have been nothing but attacked for their entire lives and developments and like existence, for instance John Hutchinson and stuff, like people that it's like the government directly used to be like, oh, you've debunked, you're fake, like these people are charlatans, and then all the hate and trolls and stuff that comes with that, and then that trauma that has caused for so many decades or generations, and be like, no, now the world's it's okay to come out to the light, like you're no longer the circuit. Oh god.
Well, that's kind of what I'm alluding to, is that it's not safe for these people. Like, I'm not trying to downplay any research that anyone's doing or anything like that. I'm just saying kind of what reality is. Like, there's a reason we don't have these devices available to the general public, because yes, you can talk about it on the internet or whatever, but that doesn't mean the average person is going to have access to it, or they're going to be building it. Like, if we were to present a water power car right now, the average person watching this isn't going to be able to produce a water power car for them to make. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's definitely a system set in place to prevent this technology from being shared with massive amounts of people, and thus breaking the Invention Secrecy Act and becoming a threat to national security. Like, they're going to prevent that at all costs. There's a system set in place to prevent what you're describing.
With the new economic geopolitical situation of the Ukraine war and the East-West division of like hard resources versus like these fake digital
I cannot believe this is still live right now. Like, I can't believe this has not been
disruptive technology, and especially disruptive technology in the energy like department field, is more tolerated, and that they're starting to encourage do-it-yourselfers to sort of figure it out, and then it's like you're going to be snatched up by industry and like given jobs to develop it more, sort of thing. And that also I believe the real purpose and like why the UFO or aliens are real, or if it's this Project Bluebeam psyop now fully in media effect, as it seems to be, to acknowledge that anti-gravity is real, that these beyond our understanding technologies are real, the actual psyop, like geopolitical purpose of the powers that be behind our military industrial complex are pushing it to get some sort of disruptive breakthrough technology advancement, because against the hypersonics that the East, being the Chinese and the Russian, have now fielded in full, are mass producing on full, and using in the hot war of the hot proxy war between NATO and Russia in Ukraine, where these hypersonics are basically undefendable. And well, NATO is still yet to actually show one video of their successful test development of hypersonics. Meanwhile, Russia's pumping out and using about 100 of them a month, each month, and growing up in numbers just in Ukraine alone. And now India has hypersonics from it. China has their own successful hypersonic project. And I believe it's Iran, yes, just came out with their new hypersonic missiles. So, you know, if there was a real world war today, it would suck. Did we get cut? Oh, we're cut.
I don't think we're cut. I mean, I can still hear you, but I don't know how many we lost. I'm like, I can't believe you just said all that crap and it was still live. I don't know if it's still live or on any channels. Like, you got to check the comments. I can't see them on this little device, but it was just between you and Shem, you guys basically said every single possible word that would have guaranteed to get it cut, that we know has destroyed it in the past. So, like, I would say good job on testing them all again.
That's why I was nervous. I was like, I don't know what to say.
Oh, good God. Hopefully, the world needs the truth. The world needs the truth. Let us know in the comments.
It seriously cut out when I was like, can I just say something?
Oh, nice. See, that's the beauty of multi-streaming and having several different computers running and different people tuned from all in on different platforms. Like, they can try to cut it, but it still keeps on chugging along.
We're still rocking it. Can I just say one thing just about the technology thing that I would like to hear your opinion on, both of you, and of course Shem, is so for me, coming from the side of being able to actually see what technology does to the brain activity, us just starting to have an understanding of 0 point in the biofield. So these robots, they have to have some sort of other electromagnetic aspect happening to them. And when we don't understand consciousness yet, I mean, and this is just like getting into manifestation. Like, what are we manifesting? A robot war? Like a whole new race? Because with the AI technology,
Skynet, Terminator sort of reality, right? We like, that's one thing that is absolutely insane, and why I actually like respect Elon Musk. He's like, you got to stop using AI for military purposes. Like, AI should never be used to kill humans in any part of it, because that's just giving it the directive to kill humans, like, and just go rogue.
Well, they'll
like,
end up having a major mental health breakdown. What was that movie? Wasn't it like the one where they're more emotional? You know, I'm just saying, it's like, that's what I mean. Like, we don't, it's not just technology. It's not just a piece of equipment. We are now fully understanding that every atom, every single molecule has some sort of energetic field around it. So what does that, I don't know. I mean, I understand that to some extent we have to entertain. I'm not opposed to, because I would like to see a world where we're touching more on the antiquitech. What do we know? And isn't there the ability to have a more natural technology that already is integrated with nature? And I think that we already figured that out and need to find it again. And that's the only reason why I say being careful with what we're manifesting. Like what kind of world are we focusing on where we need these specific items to fulfill this specific hole? Can we look at it a little differently and maybe that not, I don't know, help resolve some things?
Oh, absolutely. You're 100% bang on. Like, isn't it like the ancient Egyptian proverb and like the greatest fear was what nightmare, or like to come up with an evil nightmare or something because somewhere, or evil thoughts or nightmarish thoughts because it meant somewhere in existence you were creating that reality, like that you want to keep it positive, project positivity, and not terrorize yourself in the universe.
I mean, there probably is enough like toxic positivity that you do need some sort of equilibrium, but yeah, that's what I mean. The CIA literally has released a document telling us how to do this. We talk about this on the regular, right? We touch on it. So this has sort of been a reoccurring theme with what I talk about. And so I'm sorry if I'm annoying anybody with that, but seriously, like every day, like we put ourselves in a construct. That's what I mean, even with the technology we're talking about. Like, again, if this is potentially a simulation, why are we so obsessed with flying to it?
I think it has a lot to do with the entertainment industry and celebrities influencing society, which ties back to what we were talking about earlier with the whole people doing their jobs and stuff like that. I just feel like if the perception of what doing your job meant to you was changed through the usage of celebrities and propaganda and pop culture in general, that people would feel differently about it. I think that the group
that's where I would. Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, I think the group that caused what happened in the years we were describing earlier are the same people who control modern celebrities, and they've been pushing towards this over a long period of time. And there's a reason why this whole attitude exists, and it's to prevent a certain type of society from existing. Whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, that's up for debate. But
I don't feel like it's a bad thing, and that's what's hard. But I always like want to challenge myself because I'm like, we're the good guys, damn it. But I don't. It's so hard, right?
Intention, right? If your intent is good and you do good things and don't harm, you don't destroy, and you grow and build bridges and bring forward development and discovery, you are the good, and you law of attraction attract more and get more momentum, which is physics, the inertia going, and that it just keeps on going.
I guess let me try to simplify this a little bit. What I'm trying to say is if there were movies and there were TV shows and there were characters and celebrities presented to the public where they went to the actual movie and the TV show and all these things were people going to work and being happy going to work, that society would just in general be happy going to work. But instead, the celebrities and everything that we have are promoting this idea of seeing yourself as a god or seeing yourself as some sort of person who deserves to be like a celebrity or someone famous or someone who doesn't have to contribute back to society in any way. And that's kind of like the problem. And that's kind of where this whole COVID, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, right. Like
that's kind of where this whole narrative led us
aspect of it, and like the Klaus Schwab, we will all eat bugs, that they want to, transhumanize into like, that matrix human biological battery blob of nothing that is enslaved to them. And that's definitely not what we want to allow, that we're in this battle with ourselves, I guess, like with humanity. But are there other outside higher off world off dimension or forces interfering in this battle, and that we have to stay united for being humanitarians and build and ascend this transitional age into the golden age, instead of like, you know, adding fuel to a fire. If you're burning and you're burning your civilization down as you go into a whole bunch of gas, plasma and gas, well, it's just going to explode even more, and you're going to have nothing left. And you know, hopefully still living, breathing a couple of people to start back from the ruins of what looks like the mud ages. You know, it shouldn't have been the stone ages. Stone is all that survived, and then it was the mud that you were digging out of after whatever cataclysms were that we blew ourselves up or something happened in the last one, the last time around. And that's my key point in all of this, is that we have to transition. We're at this key transitional shift phase where humanity, technology, and destiny can use this current structure system, the machine that we were all enslaved to, and build from it as the base and the infrastructure and technological infrastructure base to that next level of ascension. But if in fact we have to burn it down and destroy it and destroy ourselves just to be free to have our free will and do what we want in the age and against the slavery and that system, well, you know, we're fucked, and obviously we don't want that, and don't want those end times prophecies of Armageddon and Doomsday happening. We want to project our own realities of you know, Eden and heaven on this plane and living forever. And that's why every day I work with trying to make that monoatomic gold and colloidal waters, and maybe I got to eat some more gold, see if I can, you know, live a little longer.
DJ ZPE, society does exactly what it was intended to do: make narcissist sociopaths out of all of us, covert and overt. That's exactly what I'm trying to say. Perfectly put. Society has been designed using celebrities to create narcissists who ruin society. But then again, it can be debatable. Like that could be a good thing, because people think
that is
people
not
think
a good thing.
Well, it's a good chaos factor again.
By design. That is part of the trap, the enslavement of the system and of Hollywood. I couldn't agree with you more, Shem. That is 100% like the design, what they've put in place to design the trap of. And I was actually having a discussion of this earlier, like yesterday at some point, I forget with who, but that Hollywood, the purpose of the act is that the people acting are believing of the story that they're portraying. So human to human body language perception, when you see that person acting and believing in what they're acting in, whatever that message is, you're accepting and believing it to be true subconsciously, because of the action. Where it's like, if when you see someone under duress where they're like not believing what they're saying, like, oh, bad acted, you're like, holy fuck, that, you know, that's bullshit, and you see it. And that's back to your point of by design, that they use it to enslave us.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, I guess, I don't even know, excuse me, I'm sorry, where exactly the debate starts about what is good and what's bad in that aspect of reality. But at the end of the day, I just think that there's multiple reasons why society is fucked up, and one of them is just, actually, I think the main, at least in the United States, is caused by the influence of celebrities and people basing their entire lives off of emulating a personality from a celebrity.
I do think it would be important at this time to bring up that previous to celebrities, don't know what face I just saw Bernie make, but that was, did you eat a fly? I feel like that was I ate a fly face.
That was I heard Andrew Tate. I thought of Andrew Tate.
Oh. But I just wanted to bring up generational trauma and mutation and what that has done with childhood abuse and victims. More or less, just that it's been a chain that has continued. That there's been a lot of excuses for. So, like with pedophilia, it's like, oh, Uncle Bob, don't do that again. We won't talk about it. Just don't do it again. But then it happens again, and then maybe the child doesn't feel heard. And so these patterns is what I'm getting at, just repeated. And so this is, if you want to get into the science of it, this has been shown to have been mutated through our DNA. This is, you know, the study that you had him on, and all of a sudden his name is blanking me. Who talked about the generational trauma in general. So I'm just saying though that
Michael Boyd, and was it?
Yes, thank you. Michael Boyd. Yeah. It was Michael Boyd, yeah.
Like the epigenetics as well.
Epigenetics, yeah.
Is it biological aspect of what that?
And that's what he's talking about, because this is just how, and like just knowing my own family's history and some of the people I talk to who have very similar stories to me, and the patterns that we end up finding ourselves in, only to find out like, oh my God, like we have the same story as far as like how our parents came to deal or come upon their own traumas and then expel it onto us. So there is some compounding factors to that, I feel, instead of just being able to point the finger at like one group of people. I know there's a narrative that's been at play, but at some point there was manipulation. And this is where like we hear that we have control, that they've just been like sprinkling this in front of us, this again, a manifestation. So I guess I am saying there is still some kind of group, because there is some still kind of narrative at play that's pushing in directions. But at some point we became players in this and we agreed to it. So and I don't know if you believe in past lives, but the ancestral aspect of it, if we're not reliving this to learn from it. And we've talked about that there's a lot of prophecies right now about remembrance, who we are, but that could mean something else totally too. And I'm just throwing this out there as a monkey in the wrench, so have fun with that.
You'll just bring in reincarnation cycle, and no, I do resonate with that though. I can agree more, really. Like it tie it all back to like Shem's point of like these controllers of who are they, why are they manipulating, like the ones that are most hypocritical of trying to preach these great values and then like doing the most horrific crimes against humanity secretly, and that also try to claim moral authority as well as just societal authority over sovereignty over us all, and our own connection to creation and eternal existence.
I think it just ties down to the connection between modern society and ancient societies, because in Platonism you basically have like the structure of society is there's a controller type class that has special privileges and is above everyone else, and anyone underneath them is just designed to serve them and basically just is not worthy of that knowledge. So that's basically where the idea of initiation comes from.
Per se.
I didn't hear what you said. I'm sorry.
Probably for the best.
But I mean, you see how
IUM maybe. Yeah.
I missed it, but I mean, modern Western society is highly influenced by Greco-Roman culture, to the point that we even have we still have the same statues, like representations on all of our buildings, Capitol buildings. Just look up any Capitol building in the United States and you're going to see some sort of Greco-Roman design on the building for whatever reason.
Right, all the way down to the facades, the like symbolism and the architecture of it.
Yeah, like the entire setup of law.
In the zodiac aspects, a lot of them have that. Obviously, the constellations in it.
What? But Graham Hancock says the zodiacs in Egypt, and there's no such thing as the zodiac. Okay, I proved it.
No, but we really, I mean, from ancient Greek, like Greco-Roman culture, we get like, I don't know, the Olympics, trial by jury, tragic comedy, democracy, Greek mythology, Hippocratic oath, philosophy, classification, Socratic method, scientific method, architecture, theater, epics. Just some examples that I found on a little list here. But that probably explains why there seems to be a group of people who make these decisions, and maybe there's a discrepancy between the people in power. Some people want us to know about what's going on, which could explain them enlightening us with this perspective of not wanting to work after the whole situation, and then the other side wants us to work and have this kind of like specific set of rules to follow for whatever reason. Could be debated.
Do you think like either side, that idle hands thing like doesn't pan out? We're not supposed to have idle hands, and I'm not saying, I also am a big believer on like that we're supposed to have sabbaticals, like, but solo journeys. You know, the natives definitely had that going on, but like well, you know, I guess that's a religious thing, the idle hands. There's some saying with that, you know, causes, I don't know, I'm gonna mess it up anyway, but you know what I'm getting at. And I just, that doesn't make sense as far as like the human race either, for us to just sit back and watch and even just to sit back and be a painter. And I, no offense to anybody who's chosen that route and doesn't feel that they can do anything other, but look at somebody like BurnEye, who's clearly an artist, but he has multiple other facets that he explores. And that's the other thing, like, this is kind of controversy, but are we supposed to be masters? Are we maybe like should do a little more of the jack of all trades? I don't necessarily mean that means master of none, but I don't know.
I think personally, I think we would find more fulfillment in life if we focused on one thing and we had a more structured society. But that's just my own personal point of view, because I've experienced so much of the opposite of that, to where you have the freedom of choice and it leads to.
So that's like you see people making poor choices with having too much, kind of a thing, or you personally have had that?
Like I used to kind of be more against the Platonic structure of society, but as I've grown, I guess, over time and gotten to know more people, it just seems like it does make sense to have a sort of hierarchy within society where there is a sort of, I guess, ruling class, and then there's people underneath that necessarily can't really handle the responsibility, I guess, of being in that situation. And I think that personally, I would not be in the ruling class situation, is what I'm trying to say here. Like, I would prefer, seeing as we are already in this position to where we have to work all the time, we have to do all this bullshit we have to do on a daily basis, I would prefer for it to be more structured, to where like I have a more enjoyable life, as opposed to like where it's at right now, where, you know, we can't even really communicate with people that we care about in our real lives as much as we would like to, just because of how divided everything is because of these topics we are discussing, basically. Like, I would prefer sorry, what were you gonna say?
No, I told you there's a stupid delay, so like it's a weird time. Like, I think I'm hitting you right when you're pausing. You know what I mean? But it comes to you a little later, so just keep going. Sorry.
I mean, that's pretty much all I had to say about it. I don't know. I think that there's something to having a structured society, although I'm not 100% on board with it. I think that there's a debate for both ways of living, and I'm not opposed to the other side. It's just from what I've seen.
Actually, some form of discipline. It doesn't mean that your whole life has to be ruled by it. It's the same thing when you say structure. Doesn't mean that it has to be 9 to 5 for the rest of our lives, is how I see it when you're saying that. Because I as somebody who has ADHD, actually, and I've told you this, like I like structure. So I'm like, we were talking about like, oh, let's pick a day of the week to be more consistent with, kind of a thing. Or I was saying that because it helps keep me feeling like I'm more productive, or that I'm having like a check-in. But
Well,
here's
here's what I see. I mean, if I may interject in this little point here, we live in a society that's full of coercion, deception, manipulation, constant bombardment of every possible product that you never wanted and never will need that will let you down in the end. I mean, we are continuously battling against a society structured around selling us on what we should think, feel, believe, and do. The only escape from that bondage of a society that tells you who you're supposed to be and what defines you is the self-awareness of recognizing what actually matters to you in your own personal life through your own life experience. And beyond that, there is no truth that can be externally applied from any structure, no matter how elegant or functional it may seem to be, that can replace the sense of self-awareness. So this is the fact and the nature of this beast. Humanity was, I don't know where it came from, how far back it goes, or exactly what caused it to become what it is now, but I can tell you that as it is
It's
now,
the self-awareness.
humanity is a self-aware society, right? And our species is one that feels tortured and traumatized when denied the opportunity for advancement or for chances to gain greater self-awareness. It's like a direct assault to the soul.
The self-awareness, in my opinion, is what causes you to want to gain more or to have that greediness in your life. The self-awareness is what caused humanity to be in this situation to begin with.
For knowledge, I would say, though, Shem, as that like the alchemist or the knowledge man, it's like the search is always to learn and teach every day in the honest way. But to tie back to what you guys were saying, as I'm losing my train of thought, god damn it, it was such a good...
Well, okay, so then what I'm trying to say is the self-awareness is the easiest way to explain it is just with the Garden of Eden. The Garden of Eden is like the perfect paradise of all time. You can basically live there forever. You're immortal. You don't think about anything. When Adam and Eve became self-aware, that's when every single problem for humanity started. So if we could live in a I'm saying
we can live in a programmed reality, the duality of good and bad, the yes and no, and that the awareness is the third dimension, the free will, that conscious choice of, are you going to do good or are you going to do bad? And thus it's up to every individual in the human experience to consciously aware to choose to do more good for not just yourself, but for others, those around you, life, like nature, like that's, true humanity, appreciates like other life. You only take what you need. You respect it. You pray for, like, the different cultures, like halal,
But dude, can you not see how if you don't have the self-awareness to begin with, then none of those problems exist?
The observer isn't observing.
Like if you're in before hold on, before
do you want to be a drone that's unaware? Do you want to sacrifice and submit your free will and to the the machine and just be a drone, a mindless drone that is unaware, that just does? Or do you want to be a third dimensional free will being, choosing self-aware and self-aware of the environment, conscious living existence, and that the next step up is the fourth and fifth dimensional consciousnesses, fourth being quantum, being thought over time and being aware of decisions that you're then making for positive, or if you're a psychopath, negative over time, that affect different people, different souls, lives, decisions, sort of things. And like you were describing, the control system that of enslavement that's against us and used to manipulate us, where that's like a fifth or sixth dimensional sort of dynamic of conscious plotting, planning, enacting, and reality and manipulation on us, because it's multi-generational, being implemented over time, over several different people's like lifespans and all sorts of stuff, right? That yeah. Sorry.
You would have none of those. You would have none of those issues if you weren't aware of them. Is what I'm trying to say.
Yep, that wouldn't make those issues go away. It wouldn't mean
they wouldn't. They wouldn't exist. They wouldn't exist.
That's not true. That's not how it works.
If there was no such thing as human ego, then
okay. Let me put it this way in a simple example, and just give me a second. I'll just present this simple example. If you are not aware of the tiger in the grass, but there is a tiger in the tall grass, it does not make the tiger go away.
It makes you.
Your lack of awareness leads you to the path of the tiger's attack, and your lineage ends at that point. I'm sorry, but your lack of awareness did not, in fact, save you, and it will not solve the problem any more than a lack of awareness will solve today's problems in society right now. I understand that maybe some hard times can lead you to believe something else, but the fact is awareness is a solution. It's not part of the problem, and these problems would still exist with or without anything being done about it or anybody realizing that they were problems. There are many problems in society that took a long time for people to become aware of. For example, lead in the gasoline and lead pipes was a problem in society that people were not aware of. The entire community in the industry producing lead pipes and installing lead pipes and putting lead in the gasoline was not aware that it would cause brain damage, that it would cause a tendency towards violence and outbursts or rage-like behavior. Okay, so there was a lack of awareness. Now, was that beautiful unawareness, that whole ignorance is bliss thing, helping anybody, or did it take one guy fighting his entire life to convince society that, guess what, this is a really stupid idea, and take a look at the damage that it's doing, maybe we should stop doing this? Okay, so again, a lack of awareness not solve
but don't you agree that there was some sort of ancient
just listen to
like that this you can't just say that this timeline started in the last few thousand years. At some point, don't you feel that there was maybe something potentially understood that's been altered?
Timelines where potentially whatever it is,
we're at this point and dimensions.
Why it's so important is because we are at this time that is now being acknowledged both by science, of it being at this galactic plane, both in ancient prophecy and calendar with galactic markings, that it is this half a precession, this Baktun, this freaking half of the zodiac, the wobble, whatever it is, and that the supposedly Atlantis was exactly 12,000 years ago, that it went under the ocean or whatever the hell happened, and that bingo, that's why Archaics is making the anti-Graham or the Graham Hancock haters, because he's suppressing the big point of the zodiac, of that it was a calendar to mark the grand cycle, and that Graham Hancock believes it's this catastrophic cycle. Maybe it is, as bringing back to the point of, is ignorance bliss, that we are potentially facing impending doom as a civilization, or like that they're aware or suspect that something's going to happen, that we're all going to die out again or something, and that we can't be made aware to prevent anarchy. But I don't think that's the case. I think it's more of a shift, and I think it's more of that, as Shem's bringing up the awareness, it's not that no longer a choice, it's that this reset has forced the awareness onto the mass consciousness now of the majority of civilization and people, and that it's this pivotal point of make or break, that we're either going to break down and break out in all-out world war destruction and potential freaking extinction, hopefully not, or catastrophic civilization catastrophe, hopefully not the case, but also at that potential of reaching that next generation demigod like life over time or life over
But
distance.
do you hear what you're saying right now? You're saying you want to become a demigod or something. Like, I don't. Is that what you're saying? Are you saying you want to become a demigod, or are you saying like humans are going to become demigods? What are you saying?
Whether you want it or not, whether any of us want it or not, it's that we've reached that point, like that.
But
that
okay, so
quickening,
just
that
pause for a second. Just pause for a
acceleration,
second. Just pause for a second.
singularity,
What you're
AI.
saying is literally what I'm describing in the Garden of Eden. That the original lie is that you can become like God through knowledge or initiation, becoming aware. You become like God. That's the whole original lie in this entire situation. Now, whether you want to look at that from a Christian perspective or a scientific perspective or anything, that's what I'm trying to say from the beginning.
One with that is that it's that maybe that could be describing the first time your physical third dimensional conscious self connects into your Christ conscious or like source God conscious, like living memory experience potential.
Well,
that humanity crosses.
I'll just let you have that one. But as far as what Jeremiah was saying about the being oblivious when the lion attacks, is the easiest way I can put this is I agree with you that yes, it does suck that happened, but the person who is unaware of every single thing is going to be sitting in that field before they die, looking at the grass and admiring every single blade of grass, or picking a flower and admiring that flower. They're going to be extremely happy until the very moment that they die.
If that's the kind of person that you are, enjoy the ignorance while it lasts, because ultimately it won't. And there's going to be a moment of realization that things just aren't the fantasy that one likes to believe, in the ignorance that...
Dude, I'm well aware of that. That's why I'm having this discussion. I'm speaking of it from a different perspective. Like, what are you talking about?
If somebody wants to do that, then go ahead and enjoy it. Like, it's not for anyone to force awareness on society, okay? So that's
what's happened. That's what's happened with our world right now.
Actually, that is what's happening. You're right, Shem. Like this brings it back actually to what's that, Jeremiah, the document that, oh God, was it NASA or the Smithsonian did about how society would react, or was it the Vatican did it, or how society would react if UFOs or aliens, off-world life and intelligence was acknowledged? And it's like that we've actually, that's the fact now. The media, the government, everyone is acknowledging and saying it's true. Whether the specimens like they brought forward in the Mexican state whatever discussion a couple of weeks ago, ET didn't make it to phone home, whatever the body, ancient decrepit bodies of what looks like aliens that from the movie ET. But anyways, point being, the governments are saying it's here, and they're forcing it on us now, and they're forcing it on society now at the exact same time that their east versus west, it escalated from the economic war to now a hot proxy war that we don't want to turn into a hot World War III, and that's why I like Elon Musk. And is that why they arrested Trump to try to disqualify him, because he said that he would instantly end the proxy war and prevent World War III from breaking out? And like,
Bernie, what was Trump's greatest accomplishment?
His greatest
what is he
is going to North Korea and trying to reach a peace agreement and settlement with North Korea. At least the fact that he was man enough to negotiate and go over and embrace the people like that is regime on their land, the first American president ever to do so, and that he had actually negotiated and reached in principle a actual peace treaty with North Korea, but John Bolton sabotaged it and prevented it at the last moment. Point
You know
being,
that Trump has connections
he's
to companies
only
called Uranium One. I'm just saying, like, I'm going to tell you, like, that feels very fluffy to me. His whole
only
career was about money.
not-
He tried to build
Okay,
a gigantic
answer your
casino that
question.
flopped, went
let me-
bankrupt on it, and everybody calls him a good businessman because he figured out how to get himself out of bankruptcy after trying to build the largest ever, which sat in ruins for millions of billions of dollars. The Taj Mahal. Do you remember this in Atlantic City? Okay, this is pre-Trump, like now. Okay, so my thing is like during his presidency,
building.
well,
So let me tell you,
Obama's writing up stuff.
George
Sorry,
Trump
they're just arguing.
Or his business. No, I gotta put my facts out. I do not.
And I haven't finished saying. I can like lay it out. I know his history.
His history.
He has direct connections with the Clinton Foundation.
Oh,
he has direct connections with the Clinton Foundation. I can prove his.
It's so
we're
sketchy.
just talking over each other. We're just talking over each other.
We're agreeing. But it was that he was the only president that didn't start a war. So for that aspect, I would take it. I would choose with actually the other
But who starts the war? Is it the president?
Kennedy that's running. I would choose him because he's also anti-war. And
well, excuse me. We don't know at this point if any of them have really like not had some other agenda at this point with like. You've obviously seen the story layout of Abraham Lincoln and JFK and the creepy similarities. They all have they had the same I mean, I can't even spit it out. Somebody in the chat's probably already spitting it out. But the similarities between the Lincoln assassination, JFK assassination, and then their actual life and careers, and it's weird. Like they have the opposite names that end up correlating. So this is just like another. That's what I'm seeing. It's just like another story. If people really dive into it and you break it down, so either we're living in some time warping dimension setup where one moment we have to relearn and fight for what's right when it's already been done in some other time frame. And that's really I know. I'm just saying we need to stop. No, we don't need to do anything. I need to stop saying that. I'm trying to work on that.
Nobody is everybody's thoughts on multiple timeline, multiple dimension theory, kind of, right? Because it's to tie this back in, some conspiracies, and last time I'm going to say anything political or mention Trump is that some conspiracies say he's a time traveler. I doubt that, but I very suspect, and what I'm interested in is more his uncle's tale in Tesla and what happened to Tesla's true information, and that there's the 1947, the year that UFOs appeared, supposedly Roswell, the end of the war, or Operation High Jump, I think it was instead, and the Philadelphia Project, and that supposedly the Philadelphia Project created multiple timeline sort of things, and that it's
remember the show Lost
back right around this time or something. Is that correct? Does anyone know what I'm talking about, Jeremiah?
I think you're right. I think you're right. And isn't there supposedly a true story about a time traveler? Sorry, go ahead, Jeremiah.
I was just saying that's just based on the story of two guys, with the Philadelphia Project stuff. So it's still very much up in the air in terms of whether or not one believes it. There's not enough evidence in either direction to support that it was true or that it was false. It's just, I suppose you got to take it on whether or not you actually believe these two guys, Preston and Cameron.
I thought there was some kind of. I probably watched some mainstream. Never mind, a breakdown that did a really good job of being well, it's open ended, but it's leaning this way, kind of a thing, which seems to be. I don't know. One thing I was going to bring up really quick is if you remember the show Lost, and I only bring this up for the premise of what it was at the end of it, right? It was this, we're sitting on a giant machine of some kind, let's just say, but that you go in and certain components switch time frames and also physically move. Do you kind of remember how that happened? like the island was like physically moving, but it was also like a time dimension thing. I don't know. There is some correlation that I do connect with on that a little bit. And I will be back.
I'm not sure if I'm familiar with the island thing, the island moving. That sounds
Bermuda time shifting island stuff, that sort of.
I guess I've never actually come across that story. So in all this time, I've still not heard about that. Interesting.
I've heard a few of them, but who knows? Weird stuff. Shem, sorry, everyone, sorry about getting mentioning trigger words, right? That's can't fall for the trap of the system of like the taking either side or attaching any emotional, like conscious, like connection to any part of their dramas, because it's designed as theater, as dividing, polarizing, dividing theater to control. That's all that is. It's like they're just the most corrupt actor, scumbag, swamp characters that could possibly be. And I think the current Let's Go Brandon initiative from the former clown, like fat orange bad man, also Epstein tied ridiculousness, like clown show. It just shows how like backwards, distorted, fucked up, and perverted the current situation of reality is here. I like what else can you say?
Yeah, I mean, it's just, I don't know. If you think of the microcosm, macrocosm type situation, it's just making two choices. Just it ties into what we were talking about earlier with all of these back and forth arguments, I guess. But
I think South Park are time travelers, actually, with their freaking, what was it, like a shit sandwich or a douchebag? Which one are you gonna vote for? If it's freaking Brandon versus fucking orange corrupt fucking, just, I don't even know, whatever. That's it. That's your choice. You're either swallowing a used, perverted. God, I don't even want to say it. I can't. Don't want to get this pulled. We'll just.
It's probably gonna get full. We accidentally mentioned some buzzwords, but yeah, I got to get going. Appreciate you having me on.
Absolutely, for sure. Much
Peace
love.
out, everybody.
Thank you, Shem. I appreciate your views.
Tartarian Truth, our man, the myth, the legend, and actually, I'll play it at the end. His most recent Tartarian Truth Jason video, pretty epic. But Sarah, before you guys came on, you guys were doing a stream, just you and Shem on your channel. Do you want to go over briefly some of what you guys have been working about and what you're talking about on there?
Yeah, definitely. Hold on one second. Just give me not even a second. I just need to adjust something and then I'll come back on camera. But just to get you all prepared, and actually I could pull up the video on. Is Shem and I went on a trip to some pretty cool remote areas of, this wasn't like specifically that remote, but just of Northern California. And I ran into this place called Fort Ross, California, and I was like, it was this supposedly recreated Russian fort from a Russian settlement in the 1800s, early 1800s. And so immediately it sparked my interest to go try to figure out a little bit more. And it ended up being connected to the Russian-American company. And what that stirred for the discussion with Shem and I was, Shem has done a lot of research on the Mongols and the Tartarian connection and their migration route. And he pulled up a really great map that just kind of gives
Tartars, like, for those that don't know, Shem essentially has two sides. That's why he has two channels. Tartarian Truth, where he does epic, awesome parody videos, keeping other supposed truthers in the alternative history Tartarian community content community accountable with their own words, essentially. And you gotta watch them if you haven't seen it. And then his channels, which I'm showing here, Shem Jacobs, under his name, where he does real, actual research into the Tartar people, the ethnic Tartars, which are real people, real ethnicity of humanity, real society, ancient society, that's still alive in Turkey today, still alive in Crimea, and often claimed as a pawn in that flashpoint of what Crimea, where the war is, was called a little Tartaria only 150 years ago on the maps. That's some of what Shem looks into, the real truth behind what Tartaria is and the culture of people there today. And sorry to interrupt, take it away, Sarah.
Oh, no. I appreciate you saying that, because he downplays himself on his research, and I was just trying to be like, yo, like he's impeccable, and then he can pull certain things, especially like out of books that he's read. So he definitely makes correlations. You cannot throw the baby out with the bathwater. And I think the sad thing that he's misinterpreted for is for being like some kind of bully, when he actually has had regular conversations with the people that he's put videos out on, that most people don't realize why he'll show a clip of them saying his name positively. That's for a reason. What happens is that with good chaos, some of us say things that irritate other people, when really it's actually just to stir up what maybe needs to be, or what's stagnant and needs to be stirred up and changed. And so honestly, if you can look at it a little bit more that way, you might find it hilarious, because there's some people, in my opinion, that are withholding very strict and strong morals to their theories without allowing any kind of debate or discussion. And that's exactly what we're trying to do here.
Created echo chambers in the YouTube communities while trying to claim that they're truthers and representing the truth community, and actually hijacking.
And not in it for the likes, but they're in it for the likes and the subs. They're just fooling you when they say that. And it ends up becoming, and this is my only grief, where people will probably debate me up and down the arms, and I like the open source idea. I do. I know that doesn't sounds too socialist, probably. We all just start sharing things, and things are free, and all of a sudden we don't have competition. I'm not saying that's not potentially going to be the problem. I'm just saying I think we should debate that a little bit more and challenge it more. Because like one of the things that we're completely missing from our society is apprenticeship, which was much more common. And so if you don't know the right people, then you end up it's not always gonna work out for you in today's world. So anyway, yeah, you're right. I'm just but I just think that his comedy is good. So I really enjoy Shem. And so more or less, he's done a ton of really good research to really back up Tartaria, and that's what we were just bringing back around today. But some people might not realize that the Russians were heavily involved on the West Coast, and some of them might not know that during their occupation of Alaska, that they set up bases in California and Hawaii. And I think one of my favorite things about our research that we figured out was the diverseness of this Russian American company, because there was a German physician who went into Hawaii to build what was a Bastinian / star fort. So that kind of irony, and he like taught it
again. Who went in to build this bastion star fort? Where?
He called himself an agent of a company. A company started in 1799, the Russian American company. It was mostly fur trade, okay? But right along this time frame was the Orthodox Church came into the West Coast and set up Russian Orthodox churches, which are still common to this day and still pilgrims to. And they came with an agenda, and a lot of the Aleutians were turned into a barter economy, which they were not used to. There was a very, obvious colonization happening of that area. And at that same time, I can show you this. I made a couple little, or at least one little clip that just kind of lays out some of the major stations, but they were all over Alaska. I mean, there's islands that we don't even realize. There's tons of islands all over British Columbia and Alaska that have Russian names. Yeah, we should play one of his videos.
Russian buildings, or Russian Orthodox cathedrals and buildings, and what are in this Tartarian theory known as Tartarian buildings, like as the main foundational center buildings in and across Alaska and BC. And for those that some might not even realize or know that Alaska was bought off of Russia, purchased off Russia.
1867. Yep, Russia occupied. Technically, Russia occupied that area from 17. There's mixed reports, but 1741 is like the most definitive date you can find. But there's a lot of indications they were there before. It's kind of hilarious. It says that they were in the Kodiak Islands by 1741, but it took them until the 1760s to land and establish the first setting on Alaska, and Unalaska is closer to Russia than the Kodiak Island. Oh, also they fully established in Sitka, Alaska, which is also much further. And you're talking about crossing some crazy oceans. And anyway, so this little video is just like kind of an introduction to the video that I'm working on fully, that Shem he's got some really good book excerpts, and then the route of migration that we were looking into. But we're just trying to more or less say that we believe that Tartaria was expanded, well, in the connection with the Mongols especially, but also in Russia, and the names that were used, and then and the expansion into the United States.
Potentially, the evidence could point that the Ottoman Empire, because modern day Turkey and the Turkic remaining influenced southeast or Eastern Europe, Asia countries, former USSR states, are Tartar. They're Turkic, but they're Tartar. They're ethnic Tartars, and they stretched all the way to the East Coast, and that Shem has found and shown and documented in his research and videos these current day Russian citizen from northeastern, like the Pacific coast of Russia, that still speak Tartar, and that they traveled to Turkey and just didn't even realize that they were fluent in Turkish, because their Tartar language is like,
Well, and he's made the connection now that the French language has a reoccurring theme and has showed up, has had a place in every country, and so he's actually saying, listen, like, he thinks the original Tartar language was French to some extent. Obviously, probably some kind of integration.
The controller language, 100% it was and is, without a doubt.
But yeah, just think about like how random it really is that the French establishment in Quebec, and how prominent that language is in Canada, and how, and like supposedly the one country that speaks it is this tiny little European country in the mix of all these others, but yet.
And all the monarchies, the kings and queens and their royal families, even the English monarchies and stuff, they all spoke and speak French, and were French royalty to begin with. And yeah, it's, the more you look into it, 100%, and that there's a huge missing, like, the linguistic history just doesn't make sense. And that's another thing that I have long predicted, and that I'm going to be working on and encourage everybody to work on, is entering in these ancient linguistics, languages, and information to AI and AI models, and using it to help figure out how language actually evolved and came from and works, as opposed to these controlling spell casting etymological manipulations that they've put upon us.
Well, and like for me, a lot of my information, like before I fully like came to where I am now with my knowledge, but was, you know, I was big on like the Sumerians and the dialect and the stories of the Sumerians, but there again, Shem's made a connection and able to show that it all stems from the same thing. So if you haven't already listened to him, you probably should. Don't throw the baby out with bathwater. I feel like this goes with everything. So you just posted those. Let me play this. This is just like a little intro to the show.
Video. Yeah,
Say that again for the video. Okay, and then we can always play something else after this, but this is just like a little intro thing, kind of, so it's not crazy. But yeah. That was just a little,
I love
just
it.
a little thing.
Just a little teaser with Starfort, Bastion Fort, and like, so that was supposedly the base of that foundation of that Bastion Fort, built by this Russian American company that supposedly did fur trading. You're saying, whereabouts at what time?
So they, like initially, the Emperor Peter the Great asked for this like 1725, because supposedly from like 1639 is what I want to say, to the early 1700s, they had apparently wiped out all of the fur trading animals off of the Siberian coast, which was quite the feat. And then turned around, pushed into Alaska, and did the same thing in less than 100 years, is what we're told. Because we're told that they were more or less pushed out of Alaska because the fur trade business went to shit. Now, there was a ton. I mean, there are some pictures where there's like just massive amounts of seal and like a lot of it's seal, but like walruses just like lining beaches and stuff. But so
And
they come in
like artificial like annihilations like in North America, Canada, especially the buffalo that they did against, and that one more
okay,
time.
this is a good topic actually. Like think about how many cases
settler secret army of the military order of the Roman Empire that led this attack of giving against the indigenous of the lands of North America here, with the both biological, the measles blankets, the alcohol attacks, and then also more importantly, what were we talking about? I freaking lost my train of thought.
We were talking about like the wiping out, and I was saying like I kind of want to bring that up a little bit more because like one thing that they tell us about Oregon was that the entire like half of the state was there was giant ponderosa pines that covered it, like ancient 1,000-year-old, huge. And if you go into certain areas, they're supposedly like leftover forests, and they're huge. And this is not redwoods. This is like high desert, huge pines. And there's other areas that have these ponderosa pines.
All the modern forests only seem like a couple hundred years old. They're all young, and that anytime anywhere in the world you find a 400, 500, or 1,000-year-old tree, they're absolutely massive titan giants. And like, how long could they live for? And then these cryptids, especially of like Loch Ness,
show you some
sea monsters that like even
right?
little reptiles, lizards, turtles, and stuff. They only have to eat something like once a week, once a month, and slowly digest it. So something absolutely giant, like we find in these fossil records that they claim to be freaking millions and billions of years old dinosaurs, but our legends and stories tell of them only like 500 or 1,000 years ago as dragons, could still be lurking at the bottoms, like in these subterranean aquifer networks, seas, and in the oceans, and they said they're
and like the time frames, which we've already kind of gotten into because of like the possibility of vapor canopy, that these things could have happened in quicker time frames and da. But that is it's a like that's okay. So they're saying that the entire
pause for 1 second. Vapor canopy, and this is a big like conspiracy topic and like a whole research subject in for those unaware of it. And we're tying it back to this when I was talking about, is it a white pulsar now, the Nassim thing, this grand ages of stars. If that actually is true and the case, then all of a sudden this idea of vapor canopy and like different energies and potential of giant titan, what they say documented, right? Different environments could have actually been in not that long ago of a time.
And that's where it's like I don't disbelieve the potential that giant ponderosas covered, and I'm going to show you this entire area is what they tell us. So this is the state of Oregon. They told us that they uncovered this entire, and that it was logged out, this entire area. Okay, now there's certain spots where it's like impossible because you're talking like, if you've ever heard of the Steens and the Alvord Desert where they'll drive, that's where they test the race cars that go 150, 200, I'm probably like, they're like, no, they go faster than that, Sarah. This is like the famous desert people have died on, like
500. They cracked the sound barriers, I believe.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. This is the desert. Okay, so clearly things aren't going to grow like in certain vicinities, right in here. But they're saying no, that it was sustained, and like so like this ridge line would have been full. And you're telling me when like the Meek family barely made it over here in the 1800s and died out, that in that short span of time they wiped out this entire. And there is stories that, like, I have been able to talk to people who lived in this area who talk about watching certain trucks come in with these giant trees.
Remember my main point: the genocide of buffalo, the extinction, like the wiping out of the wild herds of millions of wild buffalo across the plains. That was like the main food source of the indigenous human people that like had a cycle. They harvest or hunted and used the buffalo in like a symbiotic, or not necessarily symbiotic, but not parasitic and like explosively detrimental, but like a sustainable manner of as using these buffalo as a major source of their meat, protein, and food, just like we've replaced them with modern day cows and beef, that they lived off of these buffalo, and that like it was a once a year thing where, and head smashed in buffalo jump, I've actually gone there a couple of times, and like I'm finding evidence that looks actually like a giant pyramid complex, potentially a megalithic site. And shout out to Michelle Gibson for first putting me on to that site of like, hey, it looks megalithic, and now gathering evidence of that. But point being, the ancients, like just once or twice a year, they would just herd what they needed of their herd of buffalo off of this giant cliff area that is just a massive culling. And then they had it set up on like an industrial scale where they'd like do all the meat packing and like processing and preparations and curing and whatnot and distribution, and using it for the next 6 months out of the year, and over the winters, over the summers, and the rest of the life of these buffalo herds completely natural and sustainable. And that they went in and supposedly on their trains shot literally millions of buffalo just dead and left. Oh god, it's horrific.
I'm just starting to challenge the narrative of like overfishing, overhunting. Because okay, here's a good controversy that my new friend Bill brought up, and I think it's a good one, is the dams on the West Coast and the salmon runs, and the controversy of our current setups like totally hindering this natural process that has happened forever. Now, don't get me wrong, there is potentially some hindrance. But what Bill discovered was that actually it had to do with what's going on with the fish farms, specifically, where they're literally growing these things right off the coast, but they're in contained arrangements. And there's been all these studies done that actually that food is very toxic. I don't know if you guys are hearing this. Like, you have to be very careful about what you're buying. Like, you don't want to just buy salmon. You want to buy wild caught salmon. You don't want to buy a farmed tilapia. You're muted.
Exactly, and like that, they actually implemented GMO salmon in their farmed salmon, so that it's not even natural. It's genetically edited with poison infused, usually.
And I'm mixing it up, but something because of that is like either prevented them from even wanting to go upstream, or there's something that's like wrong with
the times. They've physically built these dams with no
that's what I was getting at. Actually,
for the fish.
That's what I was saying. The dams are not really the problems. It's these farms, and it's the fact that the fish are not acting as if they were native. They're acting like they cannot function in the same format. So we're being told it's the dams. Trust me, I miss like previous back in the day, miss environmentalist, miss, if you want to say the L word or whatever the fuck. Anyway, and so I sought out this environmental stuff, and I it makes, like, initially you're like, oh yeah, that's why they need fish ladders and da 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 da. No, it's more complicated than that, and it's being swept under the rug, and that's what Bill did a really good job of explaining. And honestly, there are no dams up the Washington coast. Or I'm going to take that back, because I think I'm trying to think right now. I don't think there's a single dam up the Washington coast, and that is one of the wildest. Yeah, what am I pointing at the screen, looking at the map? This is one of the wildest coastlines. You guys want to take a cool trip? You cannot actually access the majority of the coastline. If I even remember, you can't. Oh, maybe you can. No. Yes, you can, but this is reservation land. So you actually there's signs everywhere. There's a bunch of places you can't even get on the beach. And then there's whole areas where if you want to even go, you have to do your own hiking. This is actually the longest. Most people wouldn't even believe me. This is the longest beach in the United States. And everybody's like, no way. I think JJ, she's probably gone now. Actually, I think she went to bed. JJ, because she lives in Florida, is like, no way, like Florida's got to have that.
Look at that. Like, that looks terraformed and man-made, and that's the longest.
Guess what, buddy? One of the only known, though we, at this point, we know there's another star fort between somewhere in here, because there's several forts and batteries and stuff. But this is really one of the only known star forts, other than the one potentially in San Francisco. And this is Fort Stevens that I have footage of. This is where I used to live. I used to get on and walk this beach every single day. And this is where they have the battery. Boom, boom, boom.
So you walk often. Do you feel an energy when around that quote unquote battery per se, or?
Oh, in this whole vicinity. And then I found out later, after obviously I'd had my own Sasquatch experience and then started like looking up and listening to other stories, that there used to be sightings here. And I'm not surprised, because there was a elk route, and I used to drive to work and drive down this road, and they would come out because they would walk. There's this. It doesn't actually. It's changed a lot, to be honest. I went there recently. I was like, wow. Anyway, they used to walk this line, and they used to walk from the park, and so they would come all the way into downtown and walk across the road. And I lost a dog. I tracked a dog that I lost 8 months. That was doing this like circle through here, and you get to learn the elk routes, cougar routes. So I'm just saying, there's definitely something special about this area, especially. So I'm not surprised. It's kind of what I'm getting at too, with the potential for Sasquatch out here. And even though it's like the coastline, this is actually pretty remote. These are places like, though Astoria's gotten bigger, that there wasn't large populations. People don't live out here or spend other than their summers out here.
Right?
So,
like the whole like narrative they try to push of this overpopulation, when in fact it is totalitarian, at this point, transnational corporate totalitarian tyranny and Marxist mixed with fascist destruction of food sources, resources, and creating artificial scarcity and hardships on the populations. It's disgusting, but that in reality, that when you start becoming self-sufficient and grow your own gardens and raise your own animals and your own food, and then trade within your own communities and give back and work within your local system and foundations and survivability, that you can get abundance, and that there is an overabundance of land that is literally completely unoccupied to the level of, and lacking human urbanization or population to the degree that it is actually it's always refreshing, beautiful, essential, and awesome, but sometimes extremely terrifying because you experience things that shouldn't be there but are, such as cryptids, Sasquatch, and God knows what else. And I believe I myself did have one of those experiences this past summer too, just like Sarah has last year, was it?
I got gibberish talk. Wait, are you talking about Sasquatch experience?
Yeah.
My experience was in, I'm trying to remember exactly. It was before I moved to.
Oh, my mic is really low. Sorry, guys.
Okay, get this. You ready for this? You want to know what this is? This is supposedly the tree that William Clark carved into when he reached the Pacific Ocean. I'm on the peninsula that I showed you, that really long stretch right now. That's where I am right here in this footage. This was actually taken at least a year ago. So this is a little older. This is before I got my new camera too, so it's not as good, but look at that. And then I kind of like knock on it. They put some coating on it, you can see. And so clearly at some point, either this was like remade or recarved and it's not his original handwriting, right? Like at some point but this just cracked me up. I was like, really? And then I was like, I'm pretty sure I knock on it. I'm like, I don't know, guys. Sounds kind of hollow to me.
Oh, if you can go back and maybe use the UV light and get different types of photo imaging of it, it almost looks like shadow or remnants of like beneath it, the initial inscription being like the what's the Viking style runic symbol language in carving. And the inscription that looks like one.
I can probably chip off a little sample off of that. I mean,
please do. Several.
It's where it's sitting and everything. I don't see why that would be a problem. It was just, I don't know if it's just a propaganda piece or not, but either way, it's all interesting. I have some other, I went and did a little bit of the bunker, and there's so many lighthouses. I mean, I live in just one of the coolest states ever because we have the most access to the coastline, like over Washington, other than California. But California, I did some. I'll have some more there's a lighthouse that with the type of lens that they used and the technology that was behind that. So I'm going to do a little special on that. And I just feel like I've been talking, and Jerimiah was supposed to talk about some of his experiments. So I don't know if you want to steer that way, and I'm just going to shut up. But I'll give you a little bit of this as I shut up, as this footage of, this is from
that was awesome, sister. And we did get real off topic tonight, but that's okay. And if Jerimiah, you're still here, we love you. If not, we're going to catch you. We'll do it all on the next one, as we're at just over the 2-hour mark. It's getting super late, and I have to go pick up the wife from work and not leave her stranded, abandoned at 1:30 in the morning. So thank you all for this. I love you all. Please go subscribe to Join the Technicians, as well as Mindful Exposure.
Well, that channel's dead. Exotic Repulsion is where I'm posting stuff now. So
revive, Jerimiah. You have a YouTube channel, Join the Technicians, with more subscribers than my 2 channels combined, and you just leave it dead, and yet it's got so much epic stuff. Come on.
I've got so many videos that I may or may not ever post. I thought about posting them, though. I mean, I may bring it back, but I thought about bringing them over to Exotic anyways. It's a different, I'm not doing the gadget stuff so much anymore. It's now really, I've gotten into the serious science side of things.
Whatever it is, it's you.
I would say the technician.
And you should post it
maybe
on
technologist.
Screw any haters.
But anyways, well, you guys were talking about your like super wild stuff that I couldn't really comment on. I've already got another launch coil And so this is basically
Please show that before we go. Absolutely epic way to make this a real, real science episode with the live Jerimiah exotic propulsion JP demo. Real science. Ready?
Yes, please.
So I'll go through this. All right. So flip camera. So that's a launch coil. Multi-filer. So we have a holding field coil. That's this one up front. That's smaller than the other layers. And then we have our bifilar general field setup coils. And what this is going to do effectively is interact with the local refractive index in mu specifically, and a permanent magnet inside of it, a neodymium magnet, will pass through that core. It'll be positioned here a little bit front of the center line for the magnetic collapse, and then launched out this side here. And so what the interesting observation here is that both Wayne from Fail4 Research and myself have observed is there does not seem to be an equal and opposite reaction force against this coil when that magnet is launched, because those two pinched fields exist during the time.
Pause. You
go ahead.
What? So no equal or opposite reaction, aka breaking one of the most fundamental reality or fundamental properties or laws of physics and reality, correct?
Right. Well, so the basic idea is this. Imagine that I have a north on this side and a south on this side. And that south actually extends down these other layers as well. So it's north up front for both coil sets, and then it's south both here and here for the back coil sets. It just kind of creates a taper or a gradient in the field. Now imagine that there's a magnet in the center so we have a north up front for the electromagnet and a south on the back. Now we have a magnet up front here where there's a south pole and a north pole up back. So it's attracted to this normally. If that magnet is slightly out of center position and we suddenly flip the poles on this electromagnet, now that magnet's back end is going to be, somewhere, let me show here. So let's say that the magnet is about this long. So if that magnet is slightly over here, what's going to happen is when the field collapses, it's going to be launched out here. And because there is a opposing field produced by this permanent magnet that rides in the center of that core, and an opposing field produced by the motional electric field of the electrons inside this wire, both of them are trying to oppositely polarize the local mu of that space-time where both this coil and this magnet exist in a field interaction, in a quantum superposition between each other. And because the near field allows for a compound superposition or a coherent matter state to occur between these two field fluxes in the virtual ZPF, what we end up having here is the possibility of creating Compton frequency shifting radiations that are coming off the electrons going through this coil, and they're at a different velocity than the electrons inside the permanent magnet that's being launched. So again, here we have the difference in two different reference frames, because there's a difference in the velocity of the electrons inside the permanent magnet and the electrons going through this wire. But both have a comparable electric field. They just happen to be existing in isolated frames, so they don't interact equal and opposite with each other. And this is completely compatible with the Einsteinian adaptation and the Lorentz transform. I know, a bit much, but a demonstration will make things very clear, and that will be happening soon.
Is it
I don't-
power up lighting it up tonight, or are we just getting a teaser?
No, I just literally wound that while you guys were talking, so that's pretty much
That's
what
beautiful. You did that while we were talking. That's amazing.
Well, I mean, it was I wasn't gonna just
love
sit there
it.
and nothing, right? So I do have a thing to show, I guess, if y'all wanted to see
I
a thing.
appreciate the amount of time, effort, energy, and
Yeah.
work that goes into coil windings and doing real science, making
Yeah.
the different coils.
No, I actually want to send you some basic shapes that I saw like combined together that's being used as like a healing technology, and all it's just copper coil, just not quite as tight as what you're obviously showing, but just the patterns that they're showing for the flow. And I want to send it to you guys because I wonder if it's something that can't be used beyond what they're using it for, if that makes sense.
Absolutely, and definitely, please do.
So this is a little thruster that's based on the books below. So this guy here on the front cover, historian Tzarz, he has a very interesting theory about what happens when you get ion-electron pairs into a resonant dance with each other. And that because they're accelerated along one particular axis, along the length here of the thruster, and they're shaken back and forth violently, that their interaction with the 0-point field is modified due to their linear acceleration along just one particular axis, which again is completely in agreement with general relativity. So here, I'll just go ahead and power this thing on for a second. Wow, it actually took 18 volts. Amazing. Wasn't supposed to. Anyways, here we go. And then you can reverse it too. I mean, just slow it down.
Wow.
So yeah, it's powered by an AC on top of a DC, and that's being provided by a dissected neon sign transformer solid state system. So I'm running a pulse generator on that, and it's working pretty darn well. I'm surprised though. So what I'm going to do is put that thing inside of a closed case, because it's obviously going to be just called an ion propulsion device. That's the classic justification for everything that glows and, uses plasma or produces high voltage charges that can be visible corona. But the active plasma is actually quite important. And so it scatters because the constant frequency of the electrons in the active plasma change. They're not actually going to be the same because the energy stored inside the plasma is significantly higher than the outside refractive index.
Right, so essentially it's that you're confirming that plasma is like this quantum state material, and that they call it ionized or ion this or that. That's the term and technology of it, but in factuality, it's plasma state, anything in this plasma state, and that equals like superconducting cold fusion over unity, anti-gravitic, like quantum material properties, effects, and potential that happens with anything that involves plasma.
Yeah, plasma can be an incredible tool, and it's just one of those things where it's overlooked. Generally, people think that in order to mess around experimentally with plasma in the lab, you've got to have a vacuum chamber, and you have to have this really fancy instrumentation and these digital benchtop supplies and all this stuff. But you don't really need any of that. You can generate plasma in open atmosphere conditions, and I would actually consider that research the most useful of all, because what do we live in? The open atmosphere. So using technologies that operate within atmospheric conditions that we are breathing in every second to sustain our lives, well, probably a good idea that we figure out how to use that stuff that's kind of like surrounding us. That's how airplanes are going to fly. That's how hot air balloons gain their buoyancy. Why would we not use plasmas to then also operate in those atmospheric conditions using the same gases that are just surrounding us all the time? And they're there. Let's use them. They were used in Tartaria. They were used by Tesla. They were used by many.
And what potentially balloon or submarine or the Hindenburg style, also hydrogen, and that's what's in the air realm, and it seems that elite have been utilizing it forever. And as above, so below. Good way to end it off. I've got to run. thank you, Jeremiah. And this is Exotic Propulsion, Jeremiah's latest channel. Please go subscribe. Link right here in the live chat. And then also to Sarah, Mindful Exposures, as well, and posting that. And last couple words, my friends.
Yeah, go out there and make it happen. No one else is going to.
I have to stand behind that strongly. It's time for us to really start making things, like design, like creating in whatever format that means, but whatever it means for you to build a village, because it takes a village.
Don't wait for somebody to give you the opportunity. If you've been waiting for that perfect person to come and like place you in the right position, it's not going to happen. People find you when you're already on the path that they align with, and that's when they're going to basically offer their help to assist you on the path you're already clearly on. But if you're not clearly portraying that you're on a certain path, you're not,
don't worship false idols, right? Only you can save yourself, and the law of attraction, that once you're saving you, that others saving themselves will come together like we're doing here, and we're building a accelerating inertia and of taking it to the next level, and as Rex Bear says, being the change you want to see in the world. Love you all. Have a blessed week.
You crazy mother.
All right.
It's just burning.